Hey guys, Maple here once again, and going to give you a bit of an update on how the Raider Cyclone Full Fire DPS Ngamahu's Axe character is going. And so far, pretty damn good. It's still been a lot of fun, it's still very effective, very fast, and scales pretty damn well with just the weapon, the Zoph's Blood amulet, and just pretty cheap gear in general. So I do still think it's an amazing budget build if you can get the axe for cheap enough, and the blood is, or the amulet, also pretty damn good if you can get your hands on it. But the only thing strictly required should technically be the axe, and it does let you face roll pretty much the entire game. Now, I dare say the physical version of a Cyclone Raider may be better if you have like a disfavor or something like that, but for what this is, for how cheap it is to get running, it certainly works more than well enough, and creates a very fun playstyle in general. So one of the big changes that I have made to this character is I have Vaal Pact now. I felt like I absolutely had to get Vaal Pact after dying to Reflect a number of times throughout higher level maps. Up until about level, I don't know, 85 or 87 I think it was, and roughly tier 12 maps, Reflect wasn't too big an issue. It hurt, but the Ruby Flask took care of it and some careful play. Once you start getting to higher tier maps and there are monsters with more and more life, and you get sort of like minus max mods, things like that, Reflect just becomes way too hard to deal with, and Vaal Pact is absolutely essential. So we have Life Leech from the tree, and that's just below the Duelist node. It's about 2% in total, and then having Vaal Pact means you'll be leeching all the time for about 2% at least, and it really does keep you alive during these breaches, breach lords, a lot of tough moments in general. So Vaal Pact, while it feels bad pathing up to it, and I fucking hate Vaal Pact, what it is and why you need it, it does make the character a lot smoother, so feel free to get it when you feel like you need it, and I'll show you the passive tree adjustment afterwards. Besides that, not too many changes otherwise. I did end up getting a Carcass Jack because I wanted a bit of extra area and I felt that was worth the upgrade by losing some life on Bellow the Beast and replacing my Devotion helm for a proper helm with life and resist. And that has just been the entire story for the character. A lot of leveling, had a lot of fun, and I did end up trying all of the Guardians, as you can see here. This is my first Minotaur attempt on a 5-link still, on something like 2 or 3x worth of gear, depending on how budget you can buy the items, and he has 50% monster life. So with all that considered, it actually is a pretty decent amount of DPS, and I'm quite happy with how all of the Guardian fights went. Minotaur himself, you more or less can face tank. I think he's also got a crit roll on this map too, so it's a bit harder to face tank. But you can definitely just, with Vaal Pact, as you can see, do a lot of bailing and face tanking. And I just went to reset my flasks, came back out, and surprise, surprise, I fucking died to nothing. Because he burrowed, but then the graphic didn't catch up, and I got wrecked. Besides that, you shouldn't really be dying to Minotaur. It's not that hard. Just, dodge every now and again, get out of the big circles, do some spin to win, and the damage is really good. Hydra was a rather simple fight. This one had, I don't know, damage and a few damage rolls, so it wasn't the easiest one, but I don't think it had too much life, maybe like 20% extra, and the damage was really quite nice and just consistent all the way throughout. Once you get a Vaal lightning trap down, you'll be doing all the damage you need. And you can really notice the balls dropping the molten bursts and adding to your DPS quite substantially. So that's why I'm thinking if you're fizz based, you definitely need a stack poison and some bleed, more or less with a disfavor. But even then, something like a Hydra, immune to poison, that'll be quite hard to keep up your damage on. So I'm not entirely sure how well that would go as a fizz based Raider Cyclone. I think you'll be very largely dependent on your weapon, and even then the rest of your gear maybe too, and as well as that your War Chief. Currently my War Chief you see me putting down here is just a 1-link, and it's just strictly to buff myself for the melee damage gain. Besides that, he doesn't actually do any damage. Just giving you a quick taste of what tier 16 breaches look like. This was the Chimera map, and in general all tiers of mapping from 1 to 16, once you have the axe, and some good movement speed and your raider passives and some, filled out your life and most of your gear, it's all really quite smooth, even as a life-based build. I'm running something like 5.5k life. I very rarely die. You will occasionally come across a volatile monster that has more than it should have, but I don't think I've actually died to a volatile yet. Those volatiles that you should be worried about are very rare, and you'll only come across them every, several dozen maps, so chances are you won't ever really die to that stuff, but it's something to be careful for. So if you really want, do push the limits and go to 6k plus life. 7k plus will require a Combs Heart, and that means you'll be doing far less damage in your main setup, as you'll have to have your Cyclone in your main setup on the axe, as well as everything that scales your projectiles, and that just ends up being a bit of a nerf to your projectile DPS. In any case, this is the Chimera fight. It's really quite smooth, especially with the Vaal Pact. Chances are I can't die to this guy while spinning on top of him. The only real dangerous part is the smoke phase. The ads as well. If too many of them hit you at once, you may die, since they do hit for something like 4k, but more or less your life just bounces up and down with the old Vaal Pact happening. And I did chuck a Stib Knight into my setup for those slightly tougher melee situations. So I'm using a Stib Knight on top of Chimera himself, on top of the ads. Just Stib Knights everywhere. They really do go a long way towards making yourself much tankier. So all of the Guardians, except for Minotaur, were pretty much deathless and comfortable, and the Minotaur one just bullshitted me. So all in all, tier 16 Guardians with the 5-link setup, with what is supposed to be basically a budget build, all went pretty well, and I think a 6-link should be a rather nice upgrade, should I ever get that far. The Phoenix, you just run around a bit, try and avoid the Phoenix ad projectiles, I guess you'd call them, because they do hit quite hard, and as Cyclone, it's actually not that bad. I forgot what it was like playing a melee character that's really mobile, so I'm doing all my damage, yet I'm always on the move. So Cyclone, pretty great for that, and I am essentially playing a true melee character. Once you get Conk Effect in over increased area, you can see you have to be right on top of things to do any sort of damage. So it's as dangerous as it gets, I suppose, and it's still not too bad, especially with the Vaal Pact. You can push for more life, more evasion, more everything, as you see fit. Now, I do hope to have a good, clean Shaper and Uber Series run up for you in the future, but this was my first Shaper attempt, and it did not go terribly well. Haven't done Shaper in a good couple of weeks, and this character, it's very, like I said, melee-based, so I am as melee as it gets because I really have to be on top of things to hit them, and my DPS just quite wasn't good enough to easily take down Phase 3. So Phase 1 and 2, they're pretty comfortable. The ads die pretty comfortably, as you can see, and I can do Phase 1 and 2 deathless easily. On Phase 3, there's a lot more stuff to worry about because there's an extra ad coming as well, and that means that having to dodge a lot more when I have to be on top of the boss to do any damage just results in far less DPS. So it's a lot harder to get my DPS in, which already isn't incredible on a 5-link, and it just resulted in clusterfucks. Every time I fucked up or died meant that it was way harder to get back into the fight, since he'll be that much closer to doing an ad phase or a ball phase, and you just really struggle to recover. That said, I do think it's very possible, and even possible deathless. You just have to have a much cleaner Phase 3 than I managed to pull off, and I hope to show that in the future. But for now, yeah, I'll just leave you with what was a more or less extremely clusterfucky Phase 3. Let you see a few of the rare moments where I do end up fucking it up, and not much I could have done about it, except for maybe play better, but I did what I could with the tools given to me, and this is what happened. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Sick ball placement. Zana's dead? Yeah, that's fine too. Actually, she died pretty early, so that might actually be fine. I need that ball to seriously not fucking move. He was dead. I just didn't have any room to dodge the last couple of attacks anywhere. He was dead though. I needed like a spin. A fucking spin.